Hello everyone, welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm Malcolm McCauley with C5 Insight, and today we're going to do part 2 of our two-part series on forms processing. If you recall back to our very first video, what we talked about was how our organization, our demo organization, we would create all of our hydro bills. We'd update all of those hydro bills that we got into our document library on SharePoint. And in doing so, we have all this metadata against it that we were transcribing manually. So we'd actually open the bill up and we'd have to kind of go back and forth between the bill and the fields and put all the information in by hand. And it was only once a month, not a huge deal, but if you can imagine, this is on an ongoing basis, whether we have multiple different utilities or in this case just our hydro, we're having to do this every single time we get a bill. We have to put it in and go and find the data and put it there. Perfect use case for forms processing. So what we did in our first video in the series was we trained our forms processing model. So this is a machine learning model that we trained to identify the bill structure, grab all the information on that bill, and pull it out and identify it. As you can see here, we have different fields. There's bill date and usage and bill amount, all of the same fields you see here on our metadata. Right? So today we're going to leverage Power Automate, which is a separate tool in the Power Platform. And we're going to use Power Automate to combine those two things. We're going to identify when we've uploaded a new document. We're going to grab that document data. We're going to give it to the forms processing, which is going to process the data based on the model we trained. And we're going to then take the outputs of that data and put it into those fields on the metadata, which will result in us never having to manually transcribe that data again, right? What a huge savings. All we've got to do now is just upload it and go. So let's get started. We're going to trigger a new automated cloud flow. And so we're going to call this our hydro bills to SharePoint metadata. All right. And now our trigger for this is going to be when a file is created. So I'm just going to type that in, when a file is created, and we're looking for is created. It'd be helpful if I could spell properly. And so it's when we want the SharePoint one, when a file is created, and we want the properties only. Now I tried different triggers with this, and this was the only one that gave me the specific step, the identifier value that we're going to need in our second step of the flow. So there could be options with some of these other options. You can see there's like when a file is created or modified and so on. In this scenario, we're going to use this when a file is created, properties only. But feel free to explore and poke around and try different ones. But we know that this one's going to give us what we need. So I'm going to pick that. I've named it. I'm going to go ahead and create. It's going to give us a blank flow, and we're going to start by identifying the document library. So in our organization here, we have inside of our SOC team, which is our facilities team in our demo environment, we're going to go ahead and create, and you can see here we've got different libraries. The one we want is our hydro bills. Now we're going to pick which folder, and it's the overall folder itself. So let me just go down and find, it's named it. Now we originally named it the utility bills, so that's a little bit confusing, but in this case we want that specific folder to be the one that's being monitored for new data. So when a new file is created in this folder, we now want to get file content. So I'm going to get file content, and that's a SharePoint action. So we're going to go ahead and say get file content, and it's going to ask us which one. So again, we're going to give it the site address, and it's going to be our SOC team. And we're going to go ahead and pick the file. And now this is going to be dynamic from this first create. We want the identifier. So I'm just going to search identifier. And that's the identifier, which is the value in the field or in the file that we already uploaded. So we're making sure that we're looking at just this document that triggered the flow to fire. We want to get that specific file for the purposes of our flow. So we've done that. Now we want to take this file and we want to give it to the forms processing model. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go to AI Builder, happens to be the first one here. And you can see there's a ton of options here. We want to extract information from forms. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that. It's going to ask us which model. You'll see a few different ones because we've done a couple. But in the first video, you'll recall we trained our hydro bills. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to go ahead and say what form type. We know it's always PDF, so I'm going to say PDF. We're now going to grab that file content from here. So I'm going to specify file content, and that is going to go ahead and grab the right data from this file content. So it's now going to upload. What we've essentially said is when this gets uploaded, when a document gets uploaded, identify that document, give that document to our forms processing model. Now we've got a couple of items we need to work around. Both of those involved extra characters that came in from that trained model. So first of all, we have the bill amount that contains a $sign preceding the value. So it was like $1.20 or $120. The other one was usage, contained the kWh or kilowatt hours, which is generally how a hydro bill is built. And so we need to strip those away because that data isn't going to fit inside of our SharePoint number column or our currency column. So we're going to address that in two different steps. We're going to compose an action and use a certain substring expression and remove those. So I'm going to go ahead and say new step, and we're going to go ahead and say compose. And we want to compose action. And inside of here, now I happen to have this already cut out, but I'm going to paste it and then I'm going to walk you through what it is. So I'm going to click inside of inputs, say expression. I'm going to paste this and back up. Now what you see here on the right hand side, we're saying substring, so we're identifying the string inside of the result, right, that the forms processor has given us. It's outputs, which is the output of the extract information from, so this is our forms processing data. It's the body of the specific field that we're looking for, and we're saying 1, and that is the preceding character. We're basically telling it, grab a substring and avoid that first character, or in this case, we want to avoid the $sign. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Now we're going to rename this to make it easy to find. So we're going to click this, say rename, and we're just going to call this, oh, my mouse is being funny, here we go. We're going to call this compose bill amount, and we're going to create a new step, and we're going to do exactly the same thing, except, so data, compose, data operation, and in this case, the string is a little bit longer because we actually want to take data from the end. So we're going to say, I'm going to paste this in here. So we're actually saying same thing, string, the substring outputs as the same information. This time we're pointing to a different field though. We're looking for the usage value, which you see right here. And we're saying leave the front alone, but take off of the end the last 4 characters. Now, if you remember, I said kWh, that's only 3 characters. So why would we take 4? Well, there's a space. So there's the value, space, kWh. And so we want to get rid of those letters as well as that last space. You probably could leave that last space on and it wouldn't matter because it's an empty space. But in this case, to be safe, we're going to go ahead and say get rid of the last 4 characters, which will always be the space and the kWh. We now have appended our substring there, and so we're going to rename this one as well. We're going to call this one compose our usage. And now I'd love to do a quick test just to make sure that we're seeing what we need to see. So what we want to make sure is happening is that we grab the data, it identifies a file, gives it to the model. We're going to check the model, make sure the data is right. And then I want to make sure that our compose steps are actually giving us the right outputs. So we should have the right values, which should not contain either the preceding $sign or the trailing space kWh. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And we're going to say test. I'm going to say manually, so I'm going to perform the action. So I'm going to test that. So it's now going to wait for me to go ahead and upload a document. So I'm going to go ahead back to our library. This document's already there. It's already done. We're going to go ahead and say upload a new one. I'm going to pick number 2 this time. It's going to upload that document. There it is. Our flow should now fire. And let's make sure that we see a green bar across the top would be great news. That means we've successfully completed our flow. And there it is. Our flow ran successfully. So now we have all of our data in here. So we can click through each one of these. We can see here's our utility bills. It's put the right folder. It's grabbed the right file. Here's our extracted data. So we're saying it's using the hydro bills model and it's grabbed information. So here's our company value. Here's our bill date value. Here's our usage. And again, there's our kWh and our space. Here's our bill amount along with our preceding $sign and so on. So that's all good. Looks like it's grabbed all the right information. Now, did our compose steps work? Compose bill amount. This should be, here's our input, and our output. Now, interestingly, it's not showing us that preceding $sign, so maybe that didn't come across this time. Either way, we know that our output is in the right shape. That's great. And let's look at our storage. Our input was 137, and here's 137. So great news. That is doing exactly as we specified. It's exactly what we wanted. We want the dollar with the decimal and the 2 spaces, and here we just want our usage value here. So we're in great shape. We're going to go ahead and edit this. We have one last thing to do, which is now to take that data and append it to the list. So let's go ahead and add a new step. This is going to be update file properties. That's a SharePoint item. Here it is right here. So here's our action. And again, we're going to point it to the right place. So we're going to say, take this data, we're going to put it in our SOC team. We're going to put it on the library, which is our hydrobills ID, so the identifier of the document. We're going to go back to our file is created. There it is. And so now we can go ahead and fill this in. So let's update our data. Now with the title, we want the company name. So I'm going to come in here and say we want company value hyphen and the bill date value. So that's going to say the name of the company hyphen this. Now, an alternative here, we could just put in the word hydro because we know this is a hydro bill, hyphen that would work as well. Let's leave it like that. Now we want our within usage limit value. We want the value. So go ahead and put the value in there. I'm not sure why I did it twice. We're gonna go ahead and we want our usage. Now we're not going to look at the original usage field because we know that that won't work. We did some trial and error on that and made sure that that was the case. Because of that trailing characters, it wasn't going to match the right field. We need just the numbers. So in this case, we're going to use the output of our compose usage. Our bill date, we can pull the value directly from here. That's our bill date. There's bill amount. Where's our bill date value? Right there. And our bill amount, we want the compose output of our compose bill amount. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now let's test this. So right now, you see we've got line number 2. There's nothing in here. I'm going to go ahead and, now that we've saved this, let's test, and we're going to use the same one that we just created. I'll test that. We're going to allow our flow to run. You can see it's running. It's gone ahead and grabbed the file. It's pushed that file over to the processing model. And just like that, we completed. So it then created the compose actions, and then it updated our properties. So how do we know if this worked? Let's go back here. And there's our updated data. We've got hydro-date. This is the actual file. Within usage limit was true or false based on our checkbox. Our usage was 137, our bill date, and our bill amount in a currency field. So just like that, we've trained a model to grab all of the relevant data, and now we can go ahead and do another test. Let's go ahead and grab the remaining 3. So 1, 2, 3. Let's open those. So we're going to upload those documents. They're going to show up here in a minute. That action is now going to trigger our flow. And so if we come back to our flow and we go back in here, you can see if we refresh, we now see our 3 documents that we just uploaded. That's triggered the flow 3 different times because it's each individual document being uploaded. Let's refresh that. All have succeeded. Let's go back to our hydro bills. Here they all are. Now we'll give it a minute and that data should appear, or we can refresh our page. We'll give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It would have been really cool if it just showed up. I'm going to go ahead and F5, we're going to refresh our page, and voila, there's all of our data. You can see bills 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all having unique values. And if we open up any one of these, we should see, so if I open up this document here, and we open up our side panel, our flyout, all of this data is going to match. So we see the demo company is the name. We actually opted not to bring that over, but we've got bill amount, kilowatt usage, our checkbox is checked, which means true, and we've got our date, which is our date. Right? We could go back a document. Here's our other document, 137, and so on. So again, just like that, we were able to train a model, grab all that data, and then you just saw me run that 3 times on that document. As I uploaded all 3 of those documents, the flow triggered, ran itself, updated the data. That just saved me upwards of several minutes at minimum for each one of those documents to grab the right data and put it in. Or you can imagine using this on a larger scale. This could save countless hours of time in the grand scheme of things. So really, really neat function, really cool way to get the data into the metadata. And of course, with metadata, now we can start to sort things like the date, look at certain months, look at certain values, maybe identify all the ones where the usage limit says no if we had any of those, because those would be a concern. We could use this information without having to go into each individual bill and see what the values are. So that's our model. There you go. We hope you enjoyed this video. Watch for more, and we hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching.